TMH English Daily News. The headlines today: Tigrayans and Oromos have been protesting in the city of Brussels, saying Abiy Ahmed belongs at the ICC. Security and Justice for Tigrayans, as also called as SJT, have called for urgent measures against the illicit trafficking and the sales of religious heritage and antique manuscripts that have been looted from the monasteries and the churches in the northern region of Ethiopia. Notable U.S. academic says USA should lead a Berlin-style massive airlift to save the lives within the Tigray region. As we move on to the main stories for today, Tigrayans and Oromos of the diaspora in Europe have staged a demonstration in Brussels against Abiy Ahmed's government. The protesters told the EU and the AU summit that the participants that Abiy Ahmed is leading a genocide and what has him at the ICC and should not be at the EU. Let's take a listen.
Criminal is a building! Gangster is a building! Dictator is a building! Dictator is a building! Genocider is a building! Have you to ICC! Have you to ICC! Yes to ICC! African Union!
Notable U.S. academic says that the USA should lead a Berlin-style massive airlift to save the lives of all civilians in the Tigray region. Tony Magana, who's also the head of the Department of the Neurosurgeon at Maqala University, said millions that are at risk of starvation and mortal illness due to the intended deprivation from the blockade of the Tigray by the Ethiopian and Eritrean government. He goes to say only a trickle makes entry rather than giving a man dying of thirst just a drop of water, he noted. Tony Magana draws parallels between post-World War II Berlin and the current Tigray conflict. He says this situation is strongly reminiscent of the occupation and the blockade of Berlin in the year of 1942 by the Soviet Union. At the end of the World War II in East Germany, including much of Berlin, was under the occupation and control over the Soviet Union, while Western Germany was under occupation over the United States and its European allies. Beginning on June 24, 1948, Soviet Union blocked the road, rail, and water access to the areas of West Germany and Berlin. A few days later, a major airlift began by the United States as well as the Great Britain, which carried on until the 1st of May, 1949. Tony Magana said the Ethiopian government has obviously and undeniably abrogated any role of support or responsibility of the people of Tigray. Ethiopia is a signatory of Article 54 of 1977 Protocol of the 1949 Geneva Convention calling for actions to save the civilian population, as well as the Declaration of Human Rights, but has failed in carrying out its human needs obligation. Additionally, no diplomatic actions have been successful to relieve Tigray of the blockade or the foreign invasion by Eritrean forces. Tony Magana said the human needs of millions of Tigrayans, from whom death is increasing and reality cannot be delayed. He added a substantial airlift, much greater in capacity than the current limited flights, is extremely vital. The scholar said the fuel for civilians, distribution of basic necessities, food, water, purification, farming supplies, medical supplies, on ground scale is the only measure to avert a complete human catastrophe. Magnus stressed multiple potential overland routes identified by the academic sources, and not just Afar, should be ardently persuaded. As we move on to our next news, Security and Justice for Tigrayans call for the urgent measures against the illicit trafficking and the sale of religious heritage and antique manufactures looted from the monasteries and churches in the Tigray region of Ethiopia. SJT sent a letter to UNESCO's Director General in which it started the ongoing genocidal war waged by the Ethiopian and Eritrean governments against the people of Tigray has been used as a cover-up for the pillage and the sale of the religious heritages. SJT noted the sale is increasingly taking place online and has been since posted on sites such as eBay. In the letter, Security and Justice for Tigrayans said many priests and monks who use safeguards as antique manuscripts and artifacts have been massacred or forcibly displaced from the monasteries, the mosques, and the church included. SJT is also highly concerned that Tigrayans' typical heritage, written in Ge'ez language, may be among those looted, trafficked, and put for illicit online sale. It is highly likely that they're among the manuscripts and artifacts looted from Tigray monasteries, SJD quoted Jane Flanagan, the Times African correspondent, as saying, among the UNESCO's main responsibilities are protecting and preserving properties, including anything of scientific, cultural, historical, artistic, and/or religious significance. SJT asked the Office of UNESCO Director General to order an investigation and stop the sale of these antique materials that have been posted on eBay and other sites, and demanded that the perpetrators of the robbery of Tigray religious heritage should be brought to justice immediately. SJT is a U.S. registered nonprofit organization that advocates for the well-being of Tigrayans at a global scale. European Union leaders want to re-engage with African nations and counter the growing influence from China and Russia across the continent during a two-day summit in Brussels. European Commission President Ursula von der Leyen traveled to Senegal last week to meet with the president, Macky Sall, who also is the chair of the African Union. She announced a 1,050 billion euro, also known as $170 billion, invested plan in Africa as part of the EU so-called Global Getaway Project, which widely seen as an alternative to China's Belt and Road Initiative. The EU's project is expected to mobilize in total up to 300 billion euros in public and private funds by the year 2027. That concludes our news for today. Thank you so much for tuning in. Bye-bye.